Hey, check it. We out here trying to get 2 degrees buffer. 1, 2. Again. Hey, like, subscribe, and share. You know how it is. You know how we roll. Moriako Corey Johnson back with another video, continuing on this theme of solitude in nature. And I will eventually get to kind of the introductory part of the paper I've been working on. If you haven't seen the other parts, I have videos on solitude in nature with David, Moses, and Christ. Go check those out, as well as kind of the inspiration for that. But I'm going to circle back around here to the introduction for this and kind of give you a little bit of extension on the background leading up into that. I talked about how the Christian experience for me growing up seemed very sterile, right? It felt like I was doing a lot of the right things, the whole read your Bible, pray every day, and you'll grow kind of thing, and versus the neglect your Bible, forget to pray, and you'll shrink. I had that, and I was reading, as I said, read through the Bible a couple times, start to finish, cover to cover, as boring as it was. I admit that. Praying, falling asleep, and all that kind of thing. I was going through the motions, for sure. I was doing that, but I wasn't connecting with the content at all, and by extension, I wasn't connecting with God at all. And I think a big part of that, I'm convinced now looking back, they say hindsight is 20/20. I don't have perfect vision. I actually took off my glasses to make this video, so I'm kind of blurry to myself right now, but that's beside the point. What I'm trying to say is that I don't even remember. I threw myself off with that. But when it came to not being able to connect with God, I think, well, that's what it was. By extension, I was unable to connect with God without being able to connect to the idea or the concept of prayer, not really understanding that in a sterile environment. And when you think about it, logically, it makes sense. If you're talking about trying to connect with the God who's the creator, who's bigger than everything that I am and could ever be and everything that I understand, if I try to make the spiritual experience something that fits in a box, then by definition, I'm putting some things into it and I'm leaving some things out of it. And I feel like a lot of times if I try to do that with the spiritual experience, more often than not, the thing that actually gets left out of the box is God. Like, we can't try to make all of these little forms and traditions and things that we like to do as humans within religion and say that that's how we encapsulate God, because God is too big to be encapsulated by anything that could be created or imagined by a human. All right? So when I think about it like that, it makes perfect sense why my experience growing up and being so disinterested in spiritual things, it makes sense to me why that was my reality. Now, I always loved being out in nature. I always loved hiking, playing sports, football, still my favorite sport, baseball, even playing tag as a kid. I mean, it was great. But there's a difference between being out there and enjoying that and connecting to the one who created it all in his element, you know? It's different. It'd be like if you go to, let's say you go to a university and a lot of times the classrooms or the buildings are named after significant people who contributed to the university, either by donation or influence, former teacher, whatever. Sometimes you have it where those individuals are able to come back and see their names put on these places, and you might have the privilege of learning from that person in that place. How do you respond to that? When someone is able to teach you in an environment that they've created or that they're responsible for, you kind of tune in a little bit more, right? If you have, I know there might not be many fans of somebody like Elon Musk, but if he's here giving you a rundown on how Tesla works at their factory, chances are you're probably going to be somewhat interested, even if you don't like him, right? If you're on the basketball court and you have somebody like LeBron James or Michael Jordan giving you a lesson, Steph Curry giving you a lesson on how to play, chances are you're going to want to tune in to what they have to say. If you're on a football field and Tom Brady says, hey, I'm going to give you the run through of how to be a good quarterback, chances are you're probably going to listen, right? When you are engaged with a good teacher in their element, something changes in you and the way that you receive what's being presented. But a lot of times, I'm talking about football on a basketball court. or it's different. There's a disconnect there. In other words, back to the point, I might be out in nature, but I'm talking about this, or I'm playing football, or I'm just going to and from my car and house and to work and so on. And I never actually sit down to enjoy the lessons from the person who created that classroom. So I would say for my early adult life, all the way up until being a senior in college, 5-year senior, I started to get a taste of this the summer before I was a 5-year senior in a canvassing program where, I don't know, being an introvert, I always like to be by myself anyway. And canvassing, I'll talk about the reasons and all that stuff for why I was in that program, because if you know anything about door-to-door sales, it's not a place for an introvert, you wouldn't think. But I had my reasons for being there. But the point was, we were required, or advised, I should say is a better word, to go out and have devotions with God. So you'd have people who would scatter all throughout the program. We stayed in a church, school kind of facility. So some people would go in the church and do their thing there. Other people would be in different classrooms. Some people would be on the steps. Some people would be just in their room by their bed, so on and so forth. I would take my book and go and sit on top of the jungle gym. And that's where I would read and watch the sunrise. And it was just easier for me to read outside. It was easy for me to connect with the material outside like that. And by extension, because I wasn't boxing it into something, it had room to connect with the one who created me and who created the space that I was in. I felt things differently. I understood things differently. And I found a lot of peace in those moments that really helped me to go out and talk to people for 8 hours, even though it was the last thing I wanted to do over a 10-week span. All right. It's kind of crazy when I think about it, but I found a lot of peace there. Sometimes I wouldn't even read. I might just pray, talk to God briefly. And I play the trumpet. It's actually right here. Boom. This one. This is a 1938 something. Elkhart. Man, what do they call these things? Martin Committee. That's what it is. My guy, Chris Bodie. He's an inspiration. I'm not nice like that though, but who knows, one day, if I ever decide to practice. Point is, I would go out into the field next to the church and the school, and I would just stand and kind of play my trumpet out into nature. And I felt so free and liberated to do that. I don't know how many people you know that have gone to do that, or if you like to sing, if you've ever gone out and just sung in a field. We do it in the shower, but again, that's still a very contained space. To be able to express yourself in a place that has no bounds, it's different. It's different. And it's different when you're connecting in a spiritual way to something that has no bounds, in a place that has no bounds. It's just different. Solitude in nature with God is different. So that's kind of where I got my start for it. Now you fast forward to the next summer where I'm preparing to go to Palau for the first time. And we get there. There's maybe 10 or 11 of us, this small group of missionaries traveling halfway around the world. And we end up, I think we flew in on a Thursday night, late night. A lot of the church was there. Some young people from the school, some of the students were there as well to meet the new teachers. We get put into sponsor families, and by the following Saturday, we got introduced at church. And one of the families who does a lot to help with missionaries incoming, big shout out to Eric Whips. I'm shouting you out on this. He is the man, his family, really good people. They invited us on, a few of us, on an all-night fishing trip. I think I've talked about this before, so I'm going to kind of skip through this. I still have 3 or 4 bottles of Dramamine that I've been holding on to, because you never know. I did not know that my motion sickness was so bad until trying to be on a boat all night where people are trying to fish, where octopus is the bait. That stuff stinks. Like, oh my goodness. And it's just like you can't breathe any fresh air, and you're getting all queasy, and the boat's rocking, and whew, I shudder just thinking about it. But anyways, I go to sleep and I tell them, wake me up in the morning. I at least wanted to see the sunrise. So they end up waking me up, and I climb up on the front of the boat, and just what I was able to see. First of all, I distinctly remember my eyes not being able to focus on anything because there was so much worthy to be focused on. It almost gave me a headache because I was trying to download everything. So like, and I don't know, it's like I would look here, but something was telling me there's so much more of the picture that I'm missing. I would look over here to try to get more of it, and there was still more that I was missing, and so on. It was just amazing. I've never seen anything like it, whether it was the deep purples, the blues, the golds, the reds, yellows, oranges that are streaming across the sky, whether it's the shadows and the effect that it's having on the rock islands that we're out there in the midst of, whether it's the salty breeze that you feel just going in your face. And maybe I should have been on top of the boat at night. That would have helped as well to get away from the octopus. But whether it was seeing the light as the sun would come up, and you see the light kind of do like this and go through the water, and you see how transparent and translucent the water is, and you see that, wait a second, this isn't, or it doesn't look that deep, even though it might be 50 to 100 feet deep, and you're sitting there looking at the bottom and seeing all the sea life moving around. Everywhere that you looked, there was something, and I got goosebumps. I'm getting them right now. just thinking about this again. And the thought that pops into my mind in that moment is not just, man, this is beautiful. That was part of it. But a big piece of what was in my mind is, God, this is amazing. Like, you did that. And I'll tell you, maybe it's something about being out there near to the equator. The sun seems bigger, the moon seems bigger, the stars seem closer. Every morning is an amazing experience. It is an experience. Like here in the States, we have some days where, especially with the time change, where it's dark when we wake up and we're kind of already in class or at our jobs doing whatever when the sun comes up, so we may not notice it as much. Or on the other end where the sun is up really early and it's waking us up, and we're like, I still want to stay asleep. We don't view sunrise here, at least I don't. All right, maybe y'all are different, but I don't view the sunrise here in the States the same way that I did out there. Maybe it's just a Palau thing because Palau is so beautiful. I don't know. But being out there and being able to take part in that experience every day, and then combine that with talking to God while I'm looking at that, or reading through the Bible, or looking at a few verses in Psalms while I'm looking at that amazing masterpiece that's being painted on a daily basis. Never mind the sunsets, which are also on a completely different level. I've seen a few decent sunsets up here in Michigan. They scrubbing compared to the things I've seen out there. My goodness. I tell you, man, he's different. But again, being able to see, we always hear God is the creator. 7-day creation, if you believe that. And you hear, he created this and he created that and so on and so forth. You hear that. But when you hear about that in a contained box, you don't really understand it. And you don't really connect to what does that mean, right? If you look through it and you see, even in the story, there's lessons that God wanted Adam and Eve to gain from being out in nature, in solitude with him, that they needed to literally be out there to experience. And, times have changed, and I appreciate technology, but even though it's nice to be inside of a house when it's 30 degrees outside, I can't write off the experience of going out and being out in nature with God. Like, I have to keep in mind that there are lessons out there that I'm not going to learn if I'm indoors. I have to keep that in mind. So, just think about that. But yeah, being able to experience that, and it makes it tough because, man, I had 5 years of great experience out there, experiencing nature with God. And there's nature here too, but it's different because I experienced it there at such a pinnacle. It's hard sometimes to engage with nature here in the same way. So that's something I have to work on for sure. But yeah, all of that to say, this is where I'm introducing my paper with this particular story and that experience kind of leading up into that, showing why I find such a blessing in the experience of solitude and nature with God. And I want to encourage you to get out there, whether it's cold, if you're seeing this from up north in the States right now, or in Canada, or even further north, get out there, enjoy nature, and think about God while you're out there. I can guarantee you'll connect with him in a different way. And if you're down where it's warmer, closer to the equator and the sun, which is amazing, then enjoy that. And while you're out there checking that out, think about God and challenge yourself to connect with him in a different way. Literally think outside the box when it comes to your spiritual experience, because I think it'll be a level up for you as it's been a level up for me. Definitely something that I cannot get out of my mind, and I want to get back to that experience that I had. And I'm gonna do what I can. I am going a little bit further south for the break here in a few days. I'll be going down to Tennessee, where instead of the 30s, the low 30s, it's in the high 40s. I will take that, all right? And then over spring break and the end of the school year, I'm hoping to go down to the Caribbean and then back out to Palau. So I want to be able to experience and appreciate the nature, God's creation. I want to be taught by him in his element. That's what I want. And I want him to be able to reveal himself to me outside of the box that I tend to put him in. And I hope that you're able to take him outside of the box or break the box so that he can actually connect with you in your experience there as well. But anyways, that's the introduction. I'll talk about the conclusion tomorrow, make another video on that. Once again, if you haven't seen the other ones, there's 4 other videos in this series, or just documenting this paper experience. So go check those out as well. And yeah, like, subscribe, share yet again. And we out. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.